One of the classics of horror films, Hellraiser has actually become cult, but only for those who are interested in the genre. It tells the story of a man who uses a cube to travel through time and discovers unexpected and rather violent pleasures. The movie actually led to 2 sequels and a time travel conclusion, allowing viewers to understand the issues at stake more fully. Since then, other directors have used the Hellraiser universe as a reminder in new independent films, which contributes to the legend around the film. To another take on horror movies, this is the story of 3 thieves who are violent gangsters and are used to robbery and fencing. But one day, they plan to rob an old blind man who they know to be very rich, and that will change everything. Indeed, the violent night turns into an anxious night, and it seems pretty uncertain whether or not they will all come back alive. Released in 2019, the film is not actually gory, and the horror rather comes from the fact that it focuses on anxiety and silence, which means it is bound to be a hit for the viewers. 3. It is hard to get a movie that is more cult than this one in terms of horror. Amityville was released in 1979 and inspired dozens of other horror films. It tells the story of a boy who kills his family with a gun, which you don't understand, and seems to have been ordered by a voice in his head. But soon after, a family buys the house and starts experiencing strange events that will change their lives forever. Inspiring popular sagas such as The Conjuring, Amityville is a must-see for all horror film fans, and although it has aged a little, it's still as scary as ever. For bloody, gory and terrifying, this movie has got all the makings of a great horror movie. Witnessing the gradual madness of people living in a mountain village, it builds up pressure and anxiety until it becomes true horror. This is the 3rd movie by Korean director Na Hong-jin, who had already explored the crime theme in his 2 previous films. Released in 2016, it has already become cult in just a few years, showing up regularly as one of the best films of the decade, which says a lot and means it should definitely be on your list for Halloween. 5. Some horror films take some time to really start and begin quietly while ending in disaster, which is the case with this movie. The Canadian comedy is a parody of American slashers, showing 2 heroes going fishing on a lake. They meet a group of young people who get convinced that they kidnapped their friend while they just rescued her. At that point, everything turns into horror, for the 2 men become responsible for the death of some of the young people accidentally and get mistaken for killers while they actually just tried to help. 6. The title sounds pretty evocative, but you should know that the Spanish horror movie directed by Juan Piquero Simón was heavily inspired by Italian giallo. It tells the story of a serial killer on a campus who is using a chainsaw, and it quickly becomes obvious that it's all going to be very gory and tricky to watch if you're afraid of hemoglobin. The movie is definitely creepy, but it is more gory and sexy than truly scary. Of course, it is a classic and a must-see for any fan of the genre out there, but make sure to watch it with the right people. 7. Adapted from a novel by Scott Smith, The Ruins tells the story of a group of friends on holiday in the Mexican jungle. They come across an ancient Mayan pyramid that has gone wild and is covered in evil plants that you really should not smoke. The plants contain ancient spells and curses which will bring a lot of anxiety and drama. Released in 2008, the film is a great choice if you want to get scared on Halloween, but be careful as it terrified many viewers and may leave you with bad memories. So prepare yourself and don't forget to watch out for the plants. 8. Head to Australia, and more specifically to the Australian outback, with this scary horror movie. It's hard enough to watch, but when you know it's inspired by real events, it is even worse. Based on the story of 3 young surfers who get curious and approach a meteorite crater, then encounter a crane driver who turns out to be a sadistic, murderous psychopath. The film was very scary and was followed by a sequel, Wolf Creek 2, which was slightly different from the original version. Because of its success, a series was also made and is loved by the fans. 9. This movie presents a fog that covers the city and turns its inhabitants into monsters, terrifying everyone. As you can guess from the theme, the scenario actually comes from Stephen King and is an adaptation of yet another one of his novels. Terrifying and completely unexpected, The Mist is a true horror film often ranked among the best films of the genre. Besides, it deals with a wide range of themes, from the excesses of society to a sharp critique of religion. It is definitely a must-see, and it won't disappoint as the ending is probably one of the funniest of all time. 10. Friday the 13th is a real classic of horror movies. Released in 1980, the franchise is clearly one of the most profitable in the history of cinema. A legendary slasher, it tells the story of several murders that take place in a holiday camp on a specific day, Friday the 13th, reviving the legends about this cursed day. 11 sequels followed, including a crossover and a remake. Jason Voorhees is now one of the most famous monsters in the genre alongside Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. And it is worth noting that Kevin Bacon started his career with this film when he was a teenager. 11. We discover a completely different universe in Ju-on. In fact, the film starts with 2 short films of 3 minutes each, which were broadcast on television in 1998. 2 years later, the feature film was released, telling the story of a teacher, Shinsuke, who goes to the house of one of his students whom he has not seen for several days in class. At the house, a strange phenomena occurs, and the young woman gets in trouble. But to find out the end of the story, you will have to see the second film, which was released the same year and led to some American remakes including The Grudge. 12. We know Peter Jackson from The Lord of the Rings, but few people know that he first directed one of the bloodiest films in the history of cinema. In fact, this crowd-pleaser, which became a classic over time, tells the story of a woman who is bitten by a zombie and gradually transforms, attacking her entire neighborhood. The ending in particular is very gory, as the hero takes out all the zombies one by one. So be careful because you need to have a good heart in order to watch the whole movie, particularly because the special effects are particularly impressive. 13. Released in 1982 in the United States, Cat People is more hypnotic than truly terrifying. It presents a young woman who believes she is the descendant of an evil Serbian tribe who would have her turn into a panther and attack everyone. Shot in black and white, it is surprising for its setting that keeps you on edge until the end and for its suspense. The visual effects make it pretty poetic as well, and it created somber reflections to be recorded in the annals of horror cinema. A very unusual movie, this little nugget has to be discovered if you get the chance. 14. What else is there apart from zombies, aliens and beavers? Here is the story of Killer Monkeys. We follow the story of Jane Chase, an animal specialist who has to take care of 3 animals, among them an old orangutan that used to work in a circus. But little by little, the atmosphere becomes darker and the monkey becomes extremely threatening. While he blocks the young girl in her house, suspense remains until the end. This movie is another great horror film, but unfortunately underrated. For those who liked it, we advise you to follow up with Phenomena, another horror film about the relationship between humans and animals. 15. It is simple, the Blair Witch Project has completely revolutionized the world of horror films. Shot in found footage, that is, through the camera of one of the protagonists, it only shows the point of view of the characters, which adds even more fear. Young teenagers set out to camp in Blair Woods and find the famous witch everyone is talking about. But all doesn't go as planned, as you can expect. The film quickly became a classic and inspired many others in the genre, in particular the Paranormal Activity saga, which definitely borrowed its style, proving it was fundamental. 16. When people mention Dario Argento in Italy, everyone knows he is a famous director of horror and thriller films, even nicknamed the Master of the Thrill. One of his most famous movies is Deep Red from 1975, which is the masterpiece that consecrated him to the general public. But internationally, the film that really brought him fame is Suspiria, which was released in 1977. According to many people, Argento was too futuristic for Italian audiences, creating a division between critics, with foreign audiences and critics actually praising him. That is a good excuse to watch his movies as you need to make up your own.
For such cool and interesting information, subscribe and like our top most Sing English channel and page. Thank you for watching.